we've given everybody a copy of the PowerPoint. That's really just to take notes on, but it's always good to have something. And some of it is going to be too little for you to read on there, but hopefully it'll spark memories of what we said in the course. Okay, so with our first slide here, so the GED testing service has come up with kind of a scheme for what content questions will be included in the test. And they have two focusing themes. And the one I chose to work with is the development of modern liberties and democracy. The other one has to do more with economics and global migration and those issues. So the contemporary thinking, policies, and structures, major events that have shaped our democratic values, and the major thinkers who contributed to American ideas of democratic government. Within the themes, there are several topics. And I chose to focus on civics and government and U.S. history. And then there are subtopics. And the ones I tried to touch on were principles that have contributed to the development of constitutional democracy and natural and individual rights and the Bill of Rights, and some key historical documents, the early Republic period, the Civil War amendments, and civil rights. Now, some of you may already be thinking, wow, that's like too many things to try to touch on at once. But I think you'll see as we're going through, and hopefully we'll agree that this could work, is that instead of having a 4-week class or something on what is the Bill of Rights, I've tried to bring it up as a topic, as a vocabulary, introduce it through an interesting reading, which you're going to get a chance to see the activities in a few minutes. But not thoroughly learn everything about the Bill of Rights, but touch on the parts, continuing the vocabulary. So you'll see that as we go through. Okay, so the next one. So both the Reading Language Arts test and the Social Studies test really emphasize, when you're reading through the materials, you keep seeing this term, the Great American Conversation. So that refers to, in the words of the testing service, texts like the founding documents, for example, the Bill of Rights, including more contemporary sources that reflect important ideas about American citizenship and modern liberties. In the assessment guide, they also said that U.S. founding documents and the Great American Conversation that followed will be required texts for study and assessment. So this is on the multiple choice of both tests. The Reading Language Arts test also has multiple choice questions that really focus on this Great American Conversation. This is the guide, Chapter 2 of the assessment guide, for the Reading Language Arts test. So again, not just the Social Studies test, but Reading Language Arts. And it says that social studies passages on the Reading Language Arts test will be excerpts or articles pertaining to the theme of the Great American Conversation. Documents such as the Bill of Rights, the preamble to the U.S. Constitution, and then there are public speeches, Supreme Court decisions, and other writings that express important concepts about American civics. You may know, do people know the kind of flip in the content of the Reading Language Arts test? From how it used to be to how it is in 2014, fiction versus nonfiction. Somebody want to share? Do you want to?
I think it's a huge change, but I've actually found it, I think what I found more challenging is not the content per se, but the length, because in the previous test, everything was brief and short, and in the new test, the length is.
The passages are
Yeah,
longer.
it's a lot
Okay,
longer.
yeah, definitely longer and more
And-
complex.
Yeah,
And does anyone know the percentage of fiction versus
There was
nonfiction?
75% fiction in the previous test and now it's 75% nonfiction.
Oh, good. So did everybody get that? We're 75% nonfiction now. And that nonfiction will be from science, from the workplace, and from social studies. So the social studies part all focuses on this great American conversation. Okay, so similarly in the social studies portion of the test, stimulus materials, so those passages they have to read for the multiple choice. It says many of the brief texts featured will be drawn from texts reflecting the great American conversation, directly excerpted from founding documents, or analysis of these documents from contemporary, primary, or secondary sources. Okay, so again, the great American conversation. The extended response on the social studies test. This is the writing part that people were talking about. And again, we're seeing some of the same language. This is the instructions to the students. For those of you who may not know, there is a quote, something from American history that the students are given. Maybe something Thomas Jefferson said, or James Madison said, or something from the Constitution. And then there is a passage, a much more contemporary passage, a speech, a Supreme Court decision, something that had been in the news, a letter to the editor about a current topic that relates to that first quote. And they ask the students to identify the enduring issue that's expressed in the quote. And then defines it as an enduring issue reflects the founding principles of the United States and is an important idea that people often grapple with as new situations arise. So finally, kind of bringing this all together, the Department of Education has reviewed the Common Core state standards that we've been hearing so much about for K-12 in the states. And they have come up with a kind of distillation of the standards they thought were most important for college and career readiness for adults, for adult education. And at a recent conference, they showed the three key advances, the things that need to be done differently to meet these new standards. The first one is complexity. Regular practice with complex text and its academic language. We talked about, a little people have mentioned, the texts are harder. The kind of official language for that is that they're more complex. And it was explained, this is explained on a website that, I have this in writing in here, in another handout for you to look at, but Engage New York is a fantastic website. This is the state of New York has developed curriculum for the Common Core standards. And the GED 2014 is based on the standards, as are these. And they have a lot of curriculum that can be, not taken whole, but adapted. And you'll see how I've done some of that in the activities I show you later. And they say the real difference between what maybe teachers were doing before in their classrooms and what they need to do for Common Core is that teachers will no longer translate or explain texts that are complex. All students, and this is a key, regardless of current ability, will be unpacking, chunking, deconstructing, seeking meaning, conducting analysis, defining words in context, using and developing background knowledge, and working to understand, and I want to emphasize this part, what they can of the text at hand. Okay? So I want to give you just a couple of minutes to think about two questions related to this quote. And I'd like you to just think on your own for a minute and then share at your table for a couple of minutes. And then we'll kind of go around and have people share with the group. But here's the question. What does this quote suggest that teachers were doing before? And you can talk about whether in some of your classes how you may have been doing that before. And what does it suggest you need to do now with students? Okay, so I'll give you a few minutes.